Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. And today, we're going to be talking about the Kingsmourne cinematic and some of the older whispers from beings like Il'gynoth and Il'gynoth Corruption Reborn to see if they hold any weight with some of the events that we see going on, because there's been quite a few people that I've seen reference back to them. And I think it's just an interesting time to maybe take a step back and take a look at some of that stuff. So if you guys haven't seen it already, my reaction to this cinematic is already posted on the channel. It's about 6.5 minutes long, and it's kind of what you'd expect from me. A lot of hype, a lot of excitement. So I think you guys would enjoy that if you want to check that out before you watch this video. So in this video, we're going to be actually going through the cinematic and talking about it kind of step by step, and we'll kind of just go through it that way, and at the end we'll tie in some interesting quotes. And if you guys like this video, I would certainly appreciate a like. That would be great. It definitely helps spread the video, helps make it more popular. It really does help me a lot more than you might think. And a subscription to the channel would be incredibly appreciated. I'm trying to get back into putting out regular content, and I think you guys might enjoy it if you like what you get in this video. So, thanks guys.
Look around you!
What makes you believe you're not just a weapon to achieve his ends?
Enough! Join our...
So, I want to go ahead and stop right here, because I think, as much as I'd like this Sylvanas jailer partnership thing to be working out real well, and to be real cool and everything, I think Anduin might be kind of right. And I think Sylvanas knows it. Now, if you guys... So I didn't do an analysis on the previous cinematics. So if you guys want to quickly know my thoughts on this, I think that Sylvanas does have this little shred of hope within her. And I think that there's been this dichotomy of hope and despair for like most of the World of Warcraft timeline. I mean, it's rather common in fantasy to see hope and despair kind of come up often, because they can be two very potent, powerful forces. And so Sylvanas is kind of like this representation of despair, and Anduin is like this representation of hope. And in a lot of cases, in most fantasy cases, hope prevails. I think Saurfang, that whole storyline was kind of meant to outline the power of hope and how it is quite potent, and it's a force, you know, to be reckoned with, and how you can't kill hope. And so Sylvanas is giving Anduin this choice, as Anduin astutely recognizes, that she never had. Right, but it's kind of this false choice. It's like, either you can join us and essentially relinquish your hope and give in to despair, or I'll just force it upon you and you'll have to kneel to the power of despair. And as Anduin recognizes, this is a choice that Sylvanas didn't have. Sylvanas didn't willingly become a Banshee. She didn't willingly join the Lich King. Of course, that's all happened exactly the opposite of willingly. And so in her mind, and in her heart, she may have this feeling that if she can get someone like Anduin, who is a literal paragon of hope, to relinquish his hope, that she too can find solace in doing so. But it's a very dark and very sad thing, honestly. But we're gonna see that kind of play out a little bit more throughout this cinematic.
Join our cause, or be made to serve.
Right now, you hold all the power. Make your choice, Sylvanas Windrunner.
The thing about Sylvanas here, she looks very conflicted. Like she wants to do it. She wants to just force him to, but something within her knows that it's wrong. Something within her knows that. And you can very subtly see it, but in this, you can kind of see her like lips quiver as her eyes narrow a little bit. And I don't think that she's very happy about this choice, but it seems like anyway, if we're just going to go ahead and take the obvious answer here, that Sylvanas made him serve.
Despite all our efforts, the Maw continues to grow. What if Denathrius's treachery is irreparable? The Primus is lost, and Bastion cannot save the Shadowlands alone.
None of this should have happened.
So, Kerestria is not my favorite leader. I think that there are others with far more character, like Denathrius. The Winter Queen is quite enigmatic and pretty quiet, so maybe she's not quite as, much of a character as the Archon here. But even the Primus, I think, is cooler, and the Primus isn't even around. So, yeah, that's, I think one thing I want to point out here is that he's raising concern with her and is basically like, here's the status of it, here's where we're at. What do we do? And she is so off track at this point that she basically is just like, well, this wasn't supposed to happen. I don't have any ideas. I don't have any answer to what you're asking me, but this shouldn't have happened. And it's funny because if the path of Bastion wasn't flawed in the way that it is, because it is. I mean, Devos is right, or was right. Now that she's dead, that the path is flawed, and it's only flawed because of what the jailer was able to do by using an avatar via Arthas to get his influence outside of the Maw and outside the Shadowlands, similarly to what he does with Anduin, as we're going to see. He was able to basically plant this corruption, which was then brought here by Uther, and it completely dismantled Bastion. Honestly, like, it completely dismantled the one soul, one wounded soul, wounded by the power of the Maw, completely dismantled Bastion. That's how flawed the path is. So it's funny because the Archon, I think through the Covenant quest lines, I'm told that they're kind of starting to stray from the path a little bit. They're starting to recognize some of the flaws. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've been told. So the Archon really doesn't seem to know what to do. Like, if it doesn't adhere to the path, then, like, what do we do?
Perhaps the Winter Queen could...
So I would really have loved to hear what he had to say about the Winter Queen. Perhaps the Winter Queen could do what? Could spare forces? Could do something to reinforce the prison in the Maw? Because it does seem as though the Winter Queen has one of the most important pieces of said prison, because she did use the Heart of the Forest to imprison Zoval. Now, that's going to come in when we talk about the keys later on, so keep that in the forefront of your mind. But I really wish I could have heard what he had to say about the Winter Queen.
My Archon, a living soul seeks an audience.
A mortal?
A king.
I wonder if there's any legitimate distinction to be made, because it's like, it's immortal. Well, if it's a living soul, I would assume, but she also specifies it's a king. Well, okay, like, I know that Bastion's all about service and justice and honor and that type of stuff, but just because you're a king doesn't mean that you uphold those types of traits, right? Doesn't mean that you actually do those types of things. So I don't really know what the distinction is to be made there, but
by
then
all
obviously
our measures, one who has spent his life striving for justice, one who would give anything to serve his people.
Now, see, this is such an interesting interaction. I think there's a couple things going on here. I think, obviously, as Anduin is walking past him, this looks, probably to Uther, looks like Arthas. So when he looks at Anduin, he's like, what the fuck? He's probably a little bit confused, because this is after we defeat, Devos and all that, and Uther obviously is, fallen or forsworn or, whatever they're referred to as.
One who would give anything to serve his people.
And that is true about Anduin. Anduin would give anything to serve his people. So she's not wrong about Anduin. But in this case, she ends up being wrong. Now, also, with Uther, he goes and he touches this. Now, there's a couple different ways that this could go, right? He could just be reacting this way because in this state, as he's walking past Anduin, it's just reminding him of Arthas, right? And so he goes and touches upon his wound because Arthas inflicted that upon him. There is also the aspect that Anduin is literally being influenced by the powers of the Maw right now. And the powers of the Maw were flowing through Frostmourne when it was stabbed into Uther. So Uther could feel some kind of connection there. Uther could have had some inkling in this moment that the power of the Maw exists within this vessel. But I think more likely, I think what they're trying to illustrate here, especially with the monologue happening in the background, is that Uther sees Anduin as Arthas.
Serve his people. One.
But I think Uther also sees him as Arthas before Arthas fell. And I think that's why Uther has this kind of tender, almost like about to maybe cry look on his face, because I think it's probably been a very, 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 very long time since he saw Arthas like that. And obviously Uther's soul is still very much burdened by what Arthas did to him.
Whose heart is true.
Very well. He may approach.
By the way, how did Anduin get to Bastion?
Step forward.
And you have this nice tonal shift in the music, where we kind of go from this like wondrous, like kind of suspenseful music into something a little bit more eerie and mysterious.
My Ascended have spoken of you. The king held captive in the mall.
That prison could not hold me forever.
It was at this moment where I knew the Archon fucked up. As soon as he said that, in my reaction, I'm like, that is not Anduin. That's not Anduin. I mean, it's Anduin, but it's not Anduin. As soon as I heard that line. So now we're kind of getting this dialogue from Anduin here that's going to give away to the Archon who this really is.
Why have you come to Bastion?
You have a key.
So, okay. The key thing is going to come up later. But Kerestria had a key. And Anduin's going to take it from her. And this key is instrumental in releasing the jailer. Now, I would assume, based upon this, and based upon what the jailer is going to say later, that there are 5 of these keys.
That I need.
You will release this soul from your grasp.
And so the jailer knows that she has a key that will help unlock him. So whatever it was that they did to the jailer, he was fully aware of it the entire time. I mean, he was at least, you know, he knows that they locked him up in this manner. Here's the thing about this. She also knows that the jailer knows. So as soon as Anduin says it, she realizes who she's speaking to and is not very happy about it, obviously.
No. He is bound to me. Just as you once sought to bind your own brother.
So people kind of freaked out about this. Just as you sought to bind your own brother. People are like, the jailer's her brother? Yeah, I mean, guys, if you played the Maldraxxus storyline and like actually didn't skip cutscenes and stuff and skip dialogue, the Primus tells you at the end of the zone that Zovaal was his brother. He says, my brother Zovaal. So for this to be like this little death pantheon and them to all be like related, so to speak, if Zovaal's the Primus's brother, I don't know why it's a shock or surprise to anybody that he's the brother of Kerestria as well. So, kind of weird. Now, I just want to say, this motherfucker is powerful. And I don't think this is an Anduin thing. I think this is a, like, when the jailer has an avatar to get himself out of the maw, he's very powerful. Even in his weakened state, he is growing in power, obviously. But he's very, very powerful. He basically did one little ground strike and chained up all of the paragons that were still left, the 4 that were present there, and literally shattered the monument behind the Archon in one blow. Like, that's pretty insane. And that is, dude, that is probably one of the sickest cinematic shots I've ever seen. As he comes out of this, dude. Because he's just going to come fucking flying out of the smoke. This is like, do you guys remember from Warlords of Draenor? When Grommash came flying through the fucking fire and stuck Gorehowl into his fucking head, dude? That was so sick. Was that Manaroth that he did that to? That was so awesome, dude. So we see Anduin come flying out of here, and we see this like transformation take over from the core, right? Where this main skull is in the center of his armor. And it basically, I think it's basically like a disguise wearing off, so to speak. Like, I think Anduin is most likely just like cloaked in this fake, appearance. And then obviously as he's attacking, it's coming to fruition. Now, some things to realize from this. It looks really interesting because it's almost like his former armor is like burning away. It's so cool, dude. And on one side you have very clear blue. On the other side you have gold, a little bit of gold, black, and white all over the place. There could be some color palette, little hints going on there, but I'm not sure. But one thing to realize about his appearance here. Hair all gray and white. Interesting. We know who that looks like. Obviously Arthas Menethil. The glowing blue eyes. In this case, he's completely under the control of the jailer. And no runes on the armor currently igniting or illuminating. And I don't know what Karisha is thinking, because she just puts her hands up. Like, she doesn't like slap him. She doesn't like flap him with her wings and like crush him. She crush him. What the fuck was that? She doesn't like try to move. She just like takes the L. Okay, and so here in her chest, you can see the insignia of Bastion, of the Kyrian. And you can see that this blade, which looks a heck of a lot like when Rathian stabbed N'Zoth, by the way. The whole sequence is sort of similar. You can see it pulling this power from her. Now, this is one of the most interesting parts here. Anduin comes back. Couple different reasons for which this could be happening, okay? There's some people saying it's because Anduin broke free of the jailer's influence. Okay, maybe. Maybe Anduin's willpower is fighting back against the jailer and he's breaking free in this moment. Maybe because the jailer is possessing Anduin, essentially, as he is bound to the jailer. Maybe the jailer has to focus his attention and energy on, via this Mournblade, pulling this key, this energy out from the Archon. Or, and what I think is most likely, is that the jailer purposefully let Anduin go for a second here. Maybe to illustrate to Anduin the futility of him fighting. And to show Anduin, like, this is when Sylvanas says, like, we never had free will. This might be a nice illustration from the jailer to Anduin of, like, here's what it's like to not have free will. And this is what, this is what you may have to endure. This may be your fate. Like, let's say the light comes and just, like, takes over everything. This may be your fate. You may not have the free will that you believe that you do, or that you believe you always did. He could just be doing it to torture Anduin as well, to just fuck with Anduin and make Anduin feel terrible for what he's just done. And I had someone in my stream ask me, is Anduin going to get a redemption? For what? Anduin didn't do anything. This isn't like the Arthas situation, where Arthas was being subtly manipulated but still made conscious choices to do bad things, even if he thought they may have been right. Anduin is completely not in control here. It is not the same thing, and thus there does not need to be a redemption for Anduin. He hasn't done anything. And this quiver, this little breath that he has here, this is powerful. Because it's like he's been let go of this force and he's just like maybe resisting, or maybe it's just fucking his mind up as this is happening to him. But as this effect wears off of him, you can see this look of worry in his face, and you can see the exhaustion in his face. You can see it. One thing I also want to point out is now that his hair is all kind of gray, the short story that I believe was later classified as not like officially canon, where in the end sequence you see Anduin with gray hair and he's looking older. Maybe this has something to do with that. Maybe this is why Anduin looks that way, and maybe that kind of end game is coming sooner than we think. So that's just something that I'd like people to consider. that could be arising sooner than we had anticipated. But then the jailer assumes control of him pretty much immediately. And this is so fucked up, dude, because you see the runes on the armor begin to light up and become empowered. And I would assume that this is because of what he just took from the Archon, because his armor was not lit up before. But this is haunting, dude. When you see him like start to like be pulled into the influence again and basically just like snap into being mind controlled. This is scary, dude. This is like really sinister, man. To see a noble, kind heart like Anduin go from being fully aware and present in the situation with this emotion that he's feeling to basically just becoming a drone. This is really scary and very dark. Dude, that's just, ugh. Something about that. Like, they did that so well, dude. Something about this is just really spooky. And the thing that has me curious here is, does this empowering of the armor, does this lead to an even stronger influence from the jailer? Because these runes and this power seems to be like the power of domination. Like the runes themselves like invoke the power of domination. And if he's wearing them all over himself, just like the jailer is, like, it stands to reason that this is further solidifying the jailer's hold on Anduin. Now, I just want to throw out there, how the fuck did Anduin get here and how did he leave? Just a random question there that I've seen pop up. And is the Archon dead? But people are like, well, wouldn't Bastion die with her? And it's like, well, maybe. But there is, you know, there is hinting, like in Ardenweald, for instance, through the ancient mushroom teleport system, that hints that these zones existed before these Eternal Ones showed up and basically did what they wanted with them. That Ardenweald existed before the presence of the Winter Queen. Now, I know that we're told, like, these zones are the extensions of these people, and through anima, in a sense, they may be, if these individuals shaped and changed them, you know, to their own will. But that doesn't mean that these zones are inherently tied to the existence of these Eternal Ones. So that's a question. I don't know if she died or not.
The vessel performed its part flawlessly.
So as he speaks about Anduin here, he speaks about him as a vessel, right? So a means by which he can take his power through Anduin and get out of the maw and accomplish things. And that's essentially what he did with Arthas as well. He needs an avatar to get out and to do things, which is funny because Sargeras does the exact same thing. And actually, you could even compare it better to Medivh. Like, Medivh's a better example, where Medivh knew that something was happening to him, but he couldn't control it. He could try to fight back a little bit here or there, but he could remember the horrible things that he did. And Medivh was still Medivh, but the influence of Sargeras did something to him. And so it's interesting that Anduin is sort of being treated the same way, because it's possession. It's not like Anduin is not completely gone, nor was Medivh. But they're being possessed by these other things. So the sword eats up the key from the Archon. And what the jailer says here is very important. Before we get to that, though, I want to highlight Sylvanas' reaction here. The way she looks at him, she's having second thoughts. Sylvanas is having second thoughts. That's what I get from this expression. She's looking at him. She feels bad. You can see it in her face. She kind of sees herself. And I think maybe part of her sees Arthas, too. And as much hatred and disdain as she may hold, I think she's starting to see it now. That what's going on here is a little bit wrong. This really isn't probably the way to do this. And you can see her thinking about it. I think Sylvanas is starting to regret what she's doing. Huh. Interesting. Does that mean a Sylvanas redemption story? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But let's listen to what the jailer says here, because this is very important. Alexa, shut the fuck up.
3 keys remain. Then they will see. Death was never meant to be chained.
Okay, so that's a new zone that the jailer apparently shot his chains out to and is going to access. Okay. Here's the thing about what the jailer just said. He said 3 keys remain. This is a very important part. This is a very big point of contention. 3 keys remain. So if we include the Arbiter, there are 5 leaders of these zones. There are 5 eternal ones if we include the Arbiter. Here's the thing. He said Denathrius served his purpose. I think it's likely that the reason why the jailer is even sort of broken out is because Denathrius probably already gave him his key. Okay, there is 1. Okay? The second key, most likely, I mean obviously, not most likely, just came from the Archon. That's 2. That would leave the Winter Queen, the Primus, and the Arbiter. Now, the thing in the Arbiter's chest is 700 trillion% supposed to go in his chest. It absolutely, I am certain of it. Like, the imagery is too obvious. And the Primus says that the Arbiter is the final key. So that's going to be the last key that the jailer obtains if he obtains one. And it goes in his chest, and I'm pretty sure he goes to full power mode when that happens. And I'm pretty sure that we get the version of the jailer that was leaked from BlizzCon back when this was all announced, and spread through Twitter and then spread on my channel and all of that. I'm pretty sure that that's the form that he's going to take when he's fully empowered. And he's going to look a hell of a lot like Amin Thul. But then people would ask, well, wait a second. What about the Rune Carver? Isn't the Rune Carver the Primus? I think so, yes. I do think that the Rune Carver is the Primus. But that doesn't mean that the jailer, that Zovaal, has obtained that key. After all, the Primus kind of foresaw a lot of this stuff. He is, after all, a master tactician. Like the greatest tactician of the Shadowlands, of the history of the Shadowlands ever. And he was able to plan this shit so far ahead that he had a sword hidden in a fucking stone block that we would inevitably, by destiny, find and receive his message, which basically illustrates, yeah, I kind of knew this was coming, and my greatest fears were true. Now, one thing that the Primus says is that Zovaal must not reach the Sepulchre. I'm starting to wonder if that's because the Primus knew that this would happen and hid his key. Maybe the key is hidden. Now, some people have also brought up the fact that Draka is referred to as a key, and that Draka may have something to do with Zovaal getting out and using that key of the Primus in order to escape. Because she is referred to as a key to many things. She's basically like the perfect warrior, warrioress, whatever you'd like to call it. So some think that Draka might actually be, in some capacity, whether she knows it or not, the Primus's key. So that'll be really interesting to come across. Or the key could be hidden in whatever the Sepulchre is. So that's what we're assuming. He doesn't have the Winter Queen's key. He doesn't have the Primus's key. And he doesn't have the Arbiter's key. But that final key from the Arbiter actually belongs to him, I think. So they took, when these Eternal Ones imprisoned him, they took that from him. And I think the Arbiter was definitely crafted. Like someone, I don't think the Arbiter was doing any of this before. I think this probably used to be something along the lines of like Zovaal's job. And I think that souls used to always flow to the Maw. And it didn't used to be called the Maw. It used to be something, called something different. Because there's a literal river of souls that flows through it. Like, come on. And if that core within the Arbiter is anything to do with him, and he used to have that, then that means what the Arbiter is a construct basically created to fulfill a duty that it isn't originally have meant to fill. That's what I'm starting to think. The whole of Oribos is all constructed. It's an engine, and it's incredibly orderly, which is making me think that the Titans had something to do with it. The Titans probably had everything to do with it, considering the Titans have definitely been influential upon the Shadowlands based on the other like numerous points of data that we have to reinforce that idea. Like just the memories of the Titans as legendary items that are present within the Venthyr and within the Night Fae. Echo of Aenar, like Norgannon's Sagacity, like, okay, we know that the Titans were involved here. So the third key, of course, being the Winter Queens, most likely infused within the heart of the forest. It could also have something to do with Ysera at this point. There could be multiple layers to obtaining some of these keys. In this instance, it was just easy for the jailer to get Anduin to go and retrieve the one from the Archon. So again, to reiterate, most likely the heart of the forest because it was instrumental in imprisoning the jailer. It's actually specifically notated as the artifact or the point of power that was used to make the Maw inescapable. Something about it is incredibly potent and powerful in keeping this guy imprisoned, and that's probably why the Winter Queen won't fall until later on. So, the Winter Queen in the heart of the forest, the Primus, or aka the Rune Carver, who may have already relinquished his key in some other fashion. That could also be why Zovaal has a grand distaste for the Primus, because the Primus probably outsmarted and outplayed Zovaal in that regard, and it probably pissed him off, which is probably why he has this dedicated wing within Torghast to keep this motherfucker locked up and have him eternally serving him, tormenting him, stealing things from his mind, because he probably can't get what he really wanted from the Primus, which was the key, because the Primus probably already hid it. And then, of course, lastly, the Arbiter. So that's what these keys are, which would make up 5 keys. Now, that's going to tie in pretty nicely to the Il'gynoth quotes, but I don't know if it fits quite as well as people want it to. The final thing that the jailer says here, and I'll show them that death was never meant to be chained. And if you go to the cosmology map for World of Warcraft, and you pull up the cosmology map, on the cosmology map, there are chains all over death, literally all over this side of things. And I've been saying for a while, it's been one of my longest standing theories, that the Titans basically chained up death and wanted to extinguish its presence from the cosmos by basically destroying its influence in reality. And I think that I still believe that that is what happened, and I still believe that what Zovaal is referring to here is referring to what I'm saying. I know that the Eternal Ones chained him up and locked him up, but I think that it goes beyond that. Death being chained, what he's saying here goes beyond just what the Eternal Ones have done within the Shadowlands, because they're all still parts of death, right? At least that's what we're told. So for death to be chained, Zovaal is making it sound like maybe a little bit more than what's going on here, because once he gets these keys and unlocks this, he's going to show them why death was not meant to be chained. What does that mean, though? What does he mean by that? Because it sounds evil, but I have to wonder, like, how evil is it really? Like, maybe he's just right. And that doesn't mean that the ways in which he frees himself is, like, okay, and that it's not fucked up, or that it's not maybe sinister. But I don't believe death should be chained either. I don't believe that the Shadowlands works the way that it's supposed to. I don't really believe that this whole purpose is functional. And it is flawed. The whole path, the purpose, all this bullshit is definitely flawed. Just as pretty much all the other Titan prisons have been flawed. So I do think that there's a grander thing happening here that does involve the Titans. So that's what I have to say about that part. Now let's look at Il'gynoth's quotes, because some people are saying some different things about this. So Il'gynoth's quotes, the ones that would pertain to this, the boy king serves at the master's table. 3 lies will he offer you. Now the master is never defined at the master's table. Now the master's table in regards to Il'gynoth, we don't, I mean, I would assume that that's referring to N'Zoth. But by this time, that's recognized. 5 keys to open our way, 5 torches to light our path. Because it is 5 keys to open the way of the jailer. Now the torches thing, people are trying to relate to like Jaina and Thrall and Bane and yada yada yada. Okay, I could maybe see that. Okay, welcome death, do not fight it. I like that one. But here's the thing about this 5 torches. Il'gynoth Corruption Reborn says 5 lanterns now darkened. The flames they seek will light the way. So by the point that we fought Il'gynoth Corruption Reborn, which was within Ny'alotha patch 8.3, the five torches that are being referred to are also most likely the 5 lanterns that had been darkened. So I don't think that these 5 torches, 5 lanterns, whatever, is referring to those people. I don't think that. The flames they seek will light the Master's way. That, I'm not sure. Lighting the Master's way? This could be referring to the jailer in a sense, but that would mean that the jailer, in a sense then, is the master of Il'gynoth and potentially the master of the old gods, which at this point, I just can't get behind. I just can't get behind that. There's some other ones here. The Golden One claims a vacant throne. The Crown of Light will bring only darkness. That could be talking about Anduin. That could be talking about Turalyon. I think that's very possible, because in Anduin's absence, Turalyon basically takes leadership of the Alliance. He's literally a Golden One, like illuminated in light-forged armor. Crown of Light bringing only darkness. That, again, could have something to do with Kalia. Vassal of Life disguising treachery. I think I'd rather do a video on this stuff again just by itself, but the five keys, 5 torches, 5 lanterns thing, I don't know if it quite applies here, because we could look at that stuff. Like when we first fought Il'gynoth, that was back in Legion. That was in the first raid of Legion. So the 5 keys to open the way, 5 torches to light the path, that could have been the pillars of creation to open the way to Argus, to light the path forward. You know, I think that it's easy to take these quotes and over a pretty broad span of time, attribute them to many different situations, because I think it's easy to attribute as more potential situations arise, right? Like if you only have, like when the quotes come out, if there's only 1 or 2 viable options, it's probably referring to one of those viable options. And then if you, a year and a half later, 2 years later, have another quote come up that maybe could have something to do with it, the fact that it's that far later, I'm kind of thinking that they're not related. But I could be entirely wrong. That's just my thoughts on that particular aspect. But I wanted to go over this cinematic with you guys today because 1, it's awesome, and 2, it's been highly requested. And I thought that there's some really good points in there. So I think in order, I mean, I think that the Winter Queen has got to be next on the list. The Winter Queen's got to be next on the list. And I mean, here's the thing as well with the Rune Carver. We used this not very difficult to assemble device to break the chains, and then we only broke 1 fucking chain. Like, can we make another one of those little devices that Venari helped us make to get in there and free this motherfucker? And like, if maybe we do at some point, like maybe we free the Rune Carver and it's revealed to us that it's the Primus. I would assume in that case that the Primus would most likely be the next to go. And then after that, probably the Arbiter. I think the Arbiter's the end game, as the Primus refers to. She's the final key. And I think that Zovaal reobtaining whatever that power is that she holds and reclaiming what is his, I think that's what's going on. I think that's the obvious route to take in the future. So that's my thoughts on this, guys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like it. Like I said, it helps me a lot. If you're not subscribed, because like 50% of you aren't, make sure to get subscribed. It's free, and I think you guys might enjoy more of my content in the future if you like this one. Guys, go check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Pyromancer, where you can sub to me, pledge to me, couple bucks a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever you want to do to support me. It helps making content easier for the channel. So I'd appreciate that, you guys. Go follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Pyromancer. We will be live again for the Q&A and the deep dive for BlizzCon today. So I'd hope to see you guys there as well. We'll be live doing that. So appreciate you guys very much. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay awesome. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.